This video is going to be different from the rest of our videos. I'm showing you this big, giant rooster. I had my daughter draw it for me. It's on 5 pieces of poster board. I am making a big, giant, king-size quilt from a double dog dare. And the technique I'm using is going to be very different than anything I've ever done before. Some things will be familiar to you. Like right now, I'm showing you I traced through freezer paper for the big feathers on the back and the wings. For the little parts, I just freehand cut out feathers that go all over this guy. 3 pieces, the 2 feet and the beak, I did needle turn. It's the only part I did needle turn, and I don't really needle turn. I do this freezer paper method where I iron freezer paper on, I cut around it, and then I use a glue stick. And after trimming the corners and the circular parts, I glue stick it down so that it's glued under. Any applique method would work with this. I'm just quickly showing you what I did. This isn't a tutorial. Watch and see this wild thing I did. Here we are on the quilt machine. So I made a base for this rooster to go on. It's king sized. And this is the section where I nail it down. So I'll show you the rest of the quilt when I'm done quilting it. But I'm now on my quilt machine and I am appliquing it on the quilt machine, and I just went around very carefully, and now I reference the picture to decide where I'm going to draw my lines. And I put a texture in the legs just because I don't want them to be loose. I let the little toes come clear up, and then I do a little thing through the foot because I want it to be quilted down and nailed down really, really well. And then I put the other foot on, and I also applique it on. All 3 layers are there, the back, the batting, and the top. And again, I reference the picture anytime I want. And the whole time I'm assembling this on my quilt machine, I reference the picture. And these are the 2 colors of thread in case you want to know. I just wanted you to see that I'm matching the thread color so that the thread color doesn't stand out. For the leg, I put an under piece because not much of this is going to show, but I put it there so if you get peaks in between, then it has the right shape. I didn't want the rooster to look like he didn't belong to himself. So that is just how it looked best. One of the tricks about building this rooster is we have to go from the bottom to the top because that is how the feathers need to be placed so that they look like they're growing the way they're supposed to grow. So I'm just laying them out to look at, okay, which direction do I want the feathers? I want one leg to stand out, the other towards the bottom. So one of the things I did is I used feathers in the forward leg and different feathers in the other leg. So visually, you don't really realize that unless you look for it, but you're aware that they look like different legs for some reason. And some of the feathers are the same, just not all of them. So this is how I put it on, and I just started raw edge applying it. All of these feathers are going to fray, and that's what we want them to do. This quilt can be washed, it can be worn, it can be laid on, it can be stomped on, and it's still going to look really great because these feathers are supposed to fray. So as I place them, I try to make them look directional in the way I think they'd be coming and growing. I'm hoping to make them look like actual rooster feathers might look, although I haven't seen a lot of patriotic looking roosters. This quilt is made on a double dog dare for one of my friends, and he's actually going to use it. See where I put the pins? That's to differentiate and show me where I'm going to need to put the other feathers for the other leg. Also notice how I put that feather behind. I don't want to layer them one on top of another in the same direction or they won't look right. Feathers seem ruffly, and I try to change up where I put them and how I put them on so that as I do it, they grow in different ways. I won't make you watch me put too many of these little feathers on. I have registration lines. It's hard to see in the video, but I outlined the rooster, so I am following something. I'm not just brilliantly making up where to put everything. With lightly drawn lines that I used one of those embroidery pens. As I start the wing, I'm a little too excited. I'm so excited because it's one big piece. I know that I need to sew that on, and I just showed I need to leave it open for the feathers that are big behind it, and then I forgot, and I kept sewing, and oop! I remember. So here I am unpicking, something I don't like to do, but I thought I'd leave it in to show you that oopsie, if you goof, you unpick, big deal. So here it is. I need those wings to go underneath, and I've labeled them A, B, C, D. So they're all cut out with the freezer paper. Here they are. I'm getting them ready. I'm lining them up. I sewed down some feathers under them, and I'm deciding how and where to sew those feathers. This is the tricky part, is you can't have any of the yellow show underneath of the rooster. So you have to make sure, whether they're growing in the right direction or not, that there's blue shining through. That's really, really important. So that's my main focus here, is making sure that as I put the wings on, they'll be covered and it will all work out and the blue will be there. I have to think really hard about the order to sew things down. Nailing down the tail feathers was so fun. I had to think hard again to put them in the right order, but it really was this delightful thing. And when you see an extra hand poke in here with really pretty fingernail polish on, that is the wife of the guy I'm making this for. And they showed up at our house and I let her help. And it was just really fun as we nailed down these tail feathers. And quick. It's raw edge applique. It really was fun and fast to just go around and make them beautiful. And I love the way the blues look as we go further and further into the process. This quilt is a bedspread for their bed, so it really is going to make such a statement. And this poofy part, I don't know if it has, I'm sure it has a real word, but I don't know what it is. So the poofy part is so happy to quilt, and it's such a good memory for me. I bought this piece special for this quilt while I was shopping with my sister-in-law. Finally, everything under and around it is sewn down, and we can put this part of the wing all the way on and start building the rest of the rooster. It goes really fast to build the rest of the wing. I cut these freehand, but I cut them much bigger because I wanted it to be differentiated. And I also used very strong blues because visually I wanted to be able to see the wing separate from the body. Moving on, these are just those little pieces, and we just keep building and building this rooster. Now for the fun part. I love doing this eye. I just used a regular piece of fabric, and then I went around and around and around to nail it down because this black piece is minky. I love appliquing minky with the long arm, and it just creates a really good look and a really good texture. It just makes the whole rooster guy come to life. Here I am putting the beak on, which you saw is turned under, and then that red part, which has a very scientific name that you'll have to look up because I can't remember what it is. We get red for the red because I really do not want it to show through. The white worked on all the blue and all the white and all the feathers, but it just can't be on the head because I don't want to see stitching. I want to just see Mr. Rooster Guy. Not only do I go around, and this is raw edged because it can flippy flap, and that will be just fine. But I have to decide on textures and what to quilt and where to quilt it so that it just looks really nice while it lays on my friend's bed. There it is, getting done, looking fabulous, and so much fun. We did decide later to add one more feather to the top, and this is us adding it. We just felt like it needed a little more. Here it is, and it felt better. I used some of my UFO blue blocks from a blue block exchange group I was in 20 years ago. These blocks are so timeless. They're 6.5 inches, and I just used part of them to make partial borders to go around two of the corners. I love the effect. Generally, I ignore dares and people who want me to make weird things like a big, giant rooster. However, this time, I am so glad that I decided this would be fun to make. It was fun to make, and I hope that my friends love having it on their bed and enjoying it in their room forever until they're sick of it. Thanks for letting me share the giant rooster with you. Stay merry and creative.